Hello, and welcome to the Consumer VC podcast, where we discuss the intersection of venture capital and consumer innovation. I'm your host, Mike Gelb, and if you're enjoying the show, you can subscribe to my newsletter where you will receive every new episode a week early. Head to theconsumervc.com and click subscribe. All content and episodes are intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and is not investment advice. Our guest today is Mike Mayer, co-CEO of Windmill. Windmill is the smart, quiet AC unit that actually looks nice. Probably can't be said for many AC units. As you can imagine, we discussed the wonderful world of air conditioning, how he co-founded Windmill with his brother, if he had any intention of getting into air conditioning business, his approach to getting Windmill off the ground, fundraising, new revenue streams, and how he releases new products, all the shebang. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Mike. Mike, thank you so much for joining me here today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this one.
No, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really excited. We have not talked about air conditioning units yet on this podcast. So from the beginning, did you always want to be an entrepreneur and start a business with your brother?
I remember when I was like 10 years old, I wanted to start a competing clothing brand to Polo, Ralph Lauren, and I wanted to call it Peaches, and the logo was going to be this sort of sleek outline of a peach, and it was going to be marketed to kids like me, who is sort of just like a more casual polo shirt. I thought it was so cool, and I was like, I told my parents and my brothers and all this stuff, and I remember I would always try to get my little brother to sell T-shirts at our local grocery store, like outside, the people that like stand outside with like the tables and they try to sell you stuff or, get donations. I wanted to do that. And then if you fast forward a couple years, I was in high school and I got this like DVD burner, and I would go to Blockbuster and I would get the top hits and I would burn it on these, the blank DVDs, and I would sell them. I realized it was illegal after, and then I stopped doing it, but I made like $100. I would say the answer is definitely, I always saw myself as an entrepreneur. I always wanted to be, at least. And then, just sort of slowly these ideas started taking form. And Windmill really is the one, my first real stab at it. But I tried little things along the way. It was always sort of like I like coming up with new ideas, and I like seeing those ideas exist in the world. I think the making money on them certainly is something that I want, but it's secondary to seeing the idea live and breathe in the world, which I just think is so cool. You just like come up with some wacky thing in your head and then go do it and watch people interact with it. That's like the special part of this.
Definitely. So, clothing brand, understood, like very, fun, sexy market, idea, and really great. Even though it's illegal, DVDs, entertainment, people obviously enjoy entertainment. Why AC units, man? When I think of air conditioning, like that does not sound interesting. Whenever I think about my AC unit, I think it's kind of like a pain in the ass. Like what was kind of like the insight that led you to founding Windmill, and what was that kind of discovery process?
Well, I think that's part of the reason why we were all attracted to it, because it's so unsexy. It's so not the thing that your mind would go to when you start thinking about business ideas. And I think it's, part of why we're able to have some success here is because we are tackling a super antiquated, unsexy, slow-moving product category. But the origin was, I was helping my older brother Danny move apartments in the summer of 2018, and we get up to his apartment, 5th floor walk up. We're both sweating and after moving all the sofas and big boxes.
Yeah, because you're on the East Coast, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so really sweating hard.
This was in New York. Moving sucks, but moving in New York sucks like times 5. Especially, in these like old walk-up buildings where like the staircases are at weird angles and some steps are shorter than the others. It's such a pain. But we did it. We got everything up to the 5th floor, and we enter the apartment, and in the window is this loud, old yellow window air conditioner. And what do you do with that thing? It's kind of screwed into the window. You don't want to piss off your new landlord by ruining the window frames. My older brother, now friends with him, and he's a co-founder. Ryan is our third co-founder. So it's me, it's Danny, my older brother, who I was helping move. And then the third guy, Ryan, we call him Dr. Cool. He comes from a decades-long air conditioning family in New York. My brother was friends with him just from being in the city and going out. And he calls Ryan and says, "Hey, what do I do with this thing?" And Ryan says, "Where are you? I'm going to send 2 of my technicians over to take out the old unit, recycle it, and put in new units," which was like incredible. So the technicians come, they take the old unit out, they put the new units in. And Danny and I went to lunch after, and it was just sort of this moment of what happens if you don't have Ryan? Like if you can't just call a guy, you don't just know a guy. What do you do? And there was no clear answer for that. And we thought, we were coming up, Ryan, Danny, and I were coming up with business ideas before this happened. And it was sort of this moment of like, what are we doing? This is a clear problem. We're customers of these products. We have a competitive advantage with Ryan and his family's knowledge of air conditioning and his infrastructure. They have tons of trucks and warehouses and a factory relationship going back multiple decades. And it was at lunch after this move, we just said, this is it. This is it. Someone's got to do this right. And that was it. A couple months later, we flew to the factory and we were pitching them on helping us do this.
Wow. Can you talk a little bit more about Ryan's background and why didn't Ryan maybe have this idea before he was, talking with you and Danny?
Yeah. Ryan started his career working on his family's AC trucks. He was delivering ACs, repairing them, installing them. He then, once he started learning more about the family business and air conditioning, he started his own installations and repairs unit within the family business. Well, it was really his own thing, and then the family business sort of gobbled it up as it was seeing some success. So Ryan has always been in this world, and to be honest, I think he would tell you this. He was trying to get out of air conditioning. He was trying to do other stuff. We were coming up with business ideas. Across the board, it was everything but air conditioning. And then it just sort of, when Danny, Ryan, and I met, and we sort of pitched this, really it was Danny's brainchild, and he pitched this idea. Ryan acknowledged that this is a good path just because we have some institutional knowledge. We did not have institutional knowledge in some of these other business ideas we were contemplating.
So it was also kind of, in a funny way, taking the service business that Ryan built, right? And instead becoming like a product business, right? And actually building out the AC units and actually creating your own brand in the process.
Exactly, because we realized that even the new units that Ryan and his technicians brought over on that fateful summer day in August of 2018, those units were not good. They weren't nice to look at. They were not easy to install, although we didn't have, we had help. They didn't connect to an app. I don't think they were running efficiently. Who knows what refrigerant they were using. So there's all this stuff that I know now that I look back and it's like those units, and at the time we looked at it and it was purely sort of an aesthetic, like, man, these things are old. And beyond just the product, though, it's the experience. It's providing a modern experience and installation help and live chat on the site. And it is, we have taken a lot of what Ryan knows and what his family has and incorporated it into the business. But certainly it is a better product married with a better experience.
You touched on also very important things that I'm sure are very, very key ingredients to the founding of Windmill, the actual product innovation side and actually making sure that the product looks great. You very much innovated on the actual, I'm sure, branding part too. Did either of you three come from a product background? And if not, how did you even think about design and product innovation when you were kind of first thinking about the early ingredients to what eventually became Windmill?
None of us had product design or product experience. Ryan did from a manufacturing side because a few decades ago, his family started manufacturing commercial AC units. So he's been to the factory, a dozen times, has worked on his family's product, but a sleek consumer facing product, no. And we knew that that was a big gap, and it was what would ultimately set us apart. So we went on a 3-month adventure around the world. I mean, we interviewed design shops in Hong Kong, California, New York. I think there was one in Singapore. So, we went all over, and we wanted to find the right match just in terms of expertise, but also just design and personality alignment. So that was something that we had never done, but we did a lot of research and just started talking to people.
What were maybe some of like the things that you discovered about AC that maybe you didn't, know before, and really thought as well that you really could innovate on the design and just, creating just also just overall functionally a better AC unit?
Yeah. I mean, I was shocked at how difficult the design process was and is still, because you can come up with some crazy stuff, and then when it comes time to show that to a factory, and it has to pass the sniff test for the factory to say this is going to work or it's not going to work. We had some, they sort of the spectrum of mild to wild. We went after some wild ideas at first. We would talk it over with our engineers and the factory, and they would, shoot it down and say there's no way the airflow is gonna work, because an AC unit works by pulling air from inside the room, conditioning it, cleaning it, and putting it back out. But if you're blocking the airflow in any way, let's say by a completely solid front grille, for example, that's going to decrease the energy efficiency of the machine. And we wanted to produce something that was high performing. It also looked good, but worked really well. So marrying function and design was a huge challenge for us. And we got pretty far on an idea and had to kill it and go back to the drawing board like halfway through the engagement, because the airflow, was just not matching what we needed. So we hit some pretty major bumps in the road. But that's, I guess first time doing something like this, it's you're bound to face some challenges like that.
Yeah, I'd imagine like that makes sense. Managing the product's functionality and obviously wanting to be, more energy efficient than having maybe like the sleekest design, or what's, maybe a great first idea in terms of what the design should look like, and actually iterating and finding this balance between having the product look amazing, which is obviously very, very important. But of course, functionality is even more important. So that's awesome. How did you approach as well, like on the sales side of things? Your first step was you wanted to be retail first. Talk to me a little bit about how you built relationship with retailers when you want to go into retail at the very beginning and have them even accept that this could be a viable wholesale business for them. And as well as, how are you able to secure on the supply chain side your first, order quantity for it? Because I'd imagine that was incredibly expensive, because this is not a cheap product to do. This is very, very intensive, I'd imagine.
It is. This is one of those things where, like, if I thought about it too much before we started the business, I don't know if we would have started the business.
But also, it's one of those things, too, I think, that you weren't in the business, you were an outsider.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I feel like that's when it kind of helps being an outsider, because then you would never have started this business if you actually knew it, like, backwards and forwards.
It's so true. I mean, we talk about that all the time, Danny, Ryan, and I, just how much we've learned. And looking back, had we known some of these things, would Windmill exist? I'd like to think yes, but I don't actually know. To your point about retail, this is a niche category. There are 7 million window ACs bought in the US every year. It's, so when I say niche, I don't mean it's not big. You have to have a certain set of criteria in your home or whatever to use this product. It's not a water bottle where every single person in the country and the world could have a water bottle. So in order to reach a certain scale that we wanted, we knew that retail would be necessary. We could have started a D2C and been sort of a small New York brand and then build from there. But we trusted in our process and in the product that we were bringing to market, and we wanted to scale quicker than that. It was really, the beginning was cold LinkedIn messages. I mean, I literally searched Home Depot buyer, PC Richard & Son buyer, and I just went one by one and sent cold messages, and eventually, after a couple months, got some responses, and it just sort of I played popcorn a little bit. Oh, I'm not the right person, but maybe you should talk to this person. Okay, well, do you have that person's email? Or can you, all right, I'll email them. Then it's months of delay and then follow up, follow up, follow up. Oh, okay, this is interesting. Send me a presentation. For us, the hook, these buyers have been looking at the same aesthetic on the window AC for a long time. So when we sent them the presentation with this beautiful, Apple-like window AC, it got their attention. And so it was months of delay, follow up, send a presentation. They saw it, they were interested. And then it just was convincing them that we knew what we were doing. And that we, because of Ryan's family, we collectively had been manufacturing ACs for decades. And then you just go through the sales cycle, which for us took a little over a year.
I appreciate you mentioned that, and big shout out to LinkedIn for helping to connect the world, right?
Yeah.
At this time, were you thinking about raising money? Had you already raised money, or were you currently fundraising? How are you thinking about the capital structure too of your business?
We were fundraising while all this was going on. To your other question about supply chain and producing the first units, we needed a pool of capital to make that purchase. So we did a friends and family round initially. But I will say that our existing relationship with the factory helped a lot, because we didn't have to produce 5,000 units to ink a deal with them. They gave us a team of engineers to help R&D this thing to completion, and then didn't really expect a massive first order from us. The only reason we were able to do that was because of Ryan's family's relationship.
After your friends and family round, when you were thinking about institutional investment, what was that process like? Did you think that it was kind of like an instant hit? Was it very much a struggle to convince venture capitalists to invest? Would love to kind of learn a bit about that part of your journey.
Yeah, it was a struggle. It continues to be a struggle, because as a quote unquote hardware business, at least from the first glance, a lot of investors then and now are saying, oh, sorry, we don't do hardware. But they're not listening to our pitch, which is we're not a hardware business. We're an air care technology business. We just launched, a program called Eco Rewards that helps consumers control the electricity use of their units, and we get paid by utility companies for helping modulate, the usage of the units in the wild. We're doing things that, mirror a tech or software business, kind of like what Nest did in the beginning, and then Google came and gobbled them up, and we're working on other connected air care solutions. I bring that up to highlight our ultimate vision, and because that's the pitch that we're making and the pitch that we made to VCs, but to some extent, and there are some that see the vision and that came on board, and I'm so grateful to them. But there were a lot that just saw AC unit and they checked out and they said, sorry, we don't do hardware.
That's really interesting. So almost the AC unit was the entry point into the actual home.
That perfectly said. We talk about it as sort of our Trojan horse into the modern home. We're not just trying to sell an AC unit, but once we're in the home and once we have a relationship with our customers, there's a lot more that we can do, both on the software side, because, unlike a mattress, although shout out to 8 Sleep, love that product. But, outside of them, pots and pans, non-smart mattresses, you can't connect to an app. With our products, you can, and there's a lot we can do with software there. But that's exactly what you just said. It's the entry point into the home. That's the story and the vision that we're telling. Now, a lot of people can't get there or can't see past an AC unit, but that's fine. But it has been a struggle when it comes to raising money.
In the future, what do you think of the suite of products that you're eventually going to be having for Windmill?
If you think about what modern air care is, and air care is comfort and quality, right? Comfort is heating, cooling, humidification, aroma. Quality is filtration, purification, and not just for residential. By the way, there's applications for our products, beyond just selling to a customer. And so we're working on both residential and commercial solutions across the board. But yeah, there's a lot more to come from us, and some new exciting announcements coming up soon this year.
Are you also thinking about homes where they don't need AC units, right? That they use central air for AC. Is that also maybe part of the roadmap in terms of how to penetrate the home in that way?
Totally. We actually have customers now who have central air who use our products to help cool a specific room, whether it's a den or it's a nursery and they need it to be a certain temperature, and the central, for whatever reason, the ductwork or the vents are just not cooling that room. So we are in homes with central air as well. It is on our mind and it's part of our roadmap.
No, that's great. How do you also, since part of the early story of this and how you started was from a service side with Ryan, Dr. Cool, and having this service business, right? I know we've talked a lot about product here and software and hardware. How do you think also about like the service aspect towards your business and do you also do installations? Like, how do you make it a lot easier for the consumer on the AC side for installations and what have you?
Yeah, for sure. We designed the product to be, Wirecutter called this the easiest AC they've ever installed. We purposely designed the installation kit to be already assembled in the box. You just literally unbox the thing, pop it in the window. We have a pending on the installation kit. So that was the first thing, was let's design the experience and the sort of the service or the installation in the product. But then of course you're going to have customers that want additional help. We struck a nationwide partnership with TaskRabbit, so customers can easily find a tasker to help them install their Windmill AC. And then even more than that, we leverage Ryan's family's business to do white glove premium installations. Like, they will bring the unit over, in New York only, Manhattan and Brooklyn, bring the unit over, they will take it out, put it in, they do plexiglass on the sides. It's super legit and premium. And we're only able to do that because of, the relationship with Ryan's family. The only thing I would add to that is we have live chat on the site. Our customer support team is amazing. If there's a problem with a GE unit or an LG unit, which I've had problems with it took a week for them to get back to us. And then it was let's wait longer and schedule an appointment with a third party contractor. We don't have to put customers through that just because of our direct relationship with them and with the way that we service and take care of these units.
That makes a lot of sense. How do you think you've grown since founding Windmill? Maybe what are some of the lessons you've learned along the way?
That's a deep question, and there's so many ways I think about this from a sort of a mental health perspective, which, is where my mind goes first. Just being in therapy through the ups and downs of starting a business and realizing that I am not Windmill. Windmill's challenges and successes are not who I am as a person. And I think that's a huge learning for any entrepreneur, because it's going to be a rocky road. And the other answer is there are issues at every turn, no matter what. I don't care what business you're starting. There are going to be little things that pop up that derail your expectations and plans. And so being able to sort of stay constant and steady during the ups and downs of your business, which will happen no matter what, is important. So, I think not tying yourself to your business and also knowing that there are going to be a lot more problems than you would expect. I think, those have helped a lot.
How do you, the three of you, maybe think about your own relationship and making sure, as you say, you're not the business, making sure that kind of the business never kind of disrupts that person? Because I'd imagine that could be pretty challenging. Yeah,
it's taken a lot of time to figure this out. The thing that works the best is just creating a barrier between personal and work. So, for example, when Danny and I hang out, go to dinner or whatever, we don't talk about Windmill. We make a decision to not talk about Windmill. Otherwise, that's all we would talk about. And so it's nice to create separation. The other thing is Danny and I are so different from a personality standpoint and also from a skill set and expertise standpoint. So what he focuses on, I don't really know much about. What I focused on, he doesn't really know much about. So we trust each other to make decisions in those different arenas. It's one of the only ways that I think family sort of co-foundership works, and also co-CEOs. And same with Ryan too. I mean, he has such a different skill set than Danny does or that I do. So that makes it a lot easier.
How did you approach brand, maybe from the beginning all the way up to now? And as well as how did you learn from your customers? How did you create customer feedback loop? Because I know you were doing customer support from the very, very get-go, and that allowed you to kind of iterate your process of how you thought about the brand.
Yeah, I think those are super tied together. Like, we did a ton of customer interviews and research in the beginning to understand how people think about their window ACs, what brands they were buying and why. That informed our industrial design from the beginning. From a brand side, that's how we started, was talking to the customer. But also, there are things that existed in other categories, like a website that's beautiful and easy to use, and customer support that doesn't suck, that like other categories had figured out that AC just didn't figure out. And so we stole what was working from other categories, but also did it in a way that we gave it our own spin from what we were hearing from those early, customer interviews. And the other thing is, to your question about how we've evolved because of what we've heard from customers, I think back to the beginning days when we had our first prototype and we asked a bunch of random people to install it for us. And we just sat back. We gave them, I think we printed it on computer paper from Ryan's office and like the installation manual. We gave it to them and said, okay, here you go. Here's the AC. Here's the manual. Install it. And we watched them and it was so bad. It was so bad. And I was like, my general like operating philosophy is like, let's get it out in the market and learn from people and we'll improve. But with hardware, that's hard to do because you can't just like fix a bug in an app. And Ryan, with more experience in this stuff, he's like, we cannot launch this product as is. He just said, and we had a really long conversation about it. And he's like, no way. Thankfully he did, because if we had launched that first prototype, we'd be dead in the water. And we went back to the drawing board. We redesigned our installation kit, which is now what has made the unit so easy to install. And that came out of early customer conversations. I'll tell you one more product improvement that we made because of customers. This surprised me. We had a lot of customers that were using the AC in nurseries. When you hit the buttons on the AC, it beeps. A lot of people emailed us saying, hey, is there any way to turn off the beep? Because my baby is sleeping and I don't want to wake them up. We worked on a feature where you could toggle the beep on and off. Not just for nurseries, but for other use cases, and people really love it. So there's a bunch more, but I won't bore everyone.
That's awesome. No. I really appreciate those two examples. That's really helpful. What's one book that's inspired you personally, and one book that's inspired you professionally?
One book that fulfills both professional and personal, which is Unbroken. I don't know if you've ever heard about it, but it's a sort of a survival tale. He worked on planes in World War II, and the plane goes down. And it is just such an unbelievable story of how this guy survives both the crash, but also what happens to him afterwards. And we think our lives are hard and starting a business is hard, but it's absolutely a walk in the park compared to what this guy, his name is Louis Zamperini, what he goes through. Incredibly inspiring. Made me realize that, maybe the highs are not as high and the lows aren't as low as I thought. And it really put my life and the Windmill journey into perspective.
I'll have to check it out. Really excited to add to our book list, Unbroken. My final question to you is, what's your biggest piece of advice to any entrepreneur?
Go to therapy. Take care of yourself. Take care of your body. Go for a run. Work out. Eat healthy. And know that your business is not you.
Mike, this has been such a pleasure. Thanks again so much for your time.
Such a blast. Thanks for having me.
And there you have it. It was such a pleasure chatting with Mike. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you'd write a review on the Apple Podcasts. You're also welcome to follow me, your host, Mike, on Twitter @MikeGelb, and also follow for episode announcements @ConsumerVC. Thanks for listening, everyone.